Okay, right, let's make a start. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session for Pensions Awareness Week 2025. Today's topic is leaving the LGPS. So this session will help you to understand what will happen to your LGPS pension benefits if and when you leave your LGPS employment. My name is Rebecca O'Shea and I work for the Oxfordshire Pension Fund. Also on the call, we have Anna Lloyd, who also works for Oxfordshire Pension Fund. And I'm doing this presentation on behalf of Clwyd, Shropshire and Oxfordshire Pension Fund. So I expect I've got a mix of all three of those funds here today. A little bit of housekeeping first. All your cameras and microphones are turned off. So if you have any questions, please can you put them in the Q&A facility at the top. Any questions that we don't get to or we don't answer today will be answered in an FAQ document after the event. If you do put something in the Q&A box, please don't put anything about your own personal circumstances or give any personal data within your question. Anything of this type should go direct to your own pension fund. So general stuff only, please. All the contact details for your pension funds are at the end of the presentation, so you'll have to stay till then. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on your pension fund's video sharing platform after the end of Pensions Awareness Week. We don't expect to keep you for the full 45 minutes. It's probably more likely to be 20 to 25, so you will get a bit of time back. And let's start with a little poll. See who you are and what you know about the LGPS. So first of all, if you could just indicate which LGPS pension fund are you currently a member of? If you could just complete the poll. And then after that, you'll get another question come up. If you had to score your own LGPS knowledge now, what score would you give yourself? Where 1 is very bad knowledge and 5 is very good knowledge. Okay, so I'll just give you a couple of seconds to respond to those. Thank you very much. And let's make a start. So a pension is a great way to save for retirement. And as you're probably all aware, a public sector pension like the LGPS is one of the very best. So what is your pension? It's a way of saving for retirement that will pay you an income for life after you've finished working. Pensions come in many, many shapes and sizes, and today we will only be looking at the features and benefits of the LGPS. And we're going to focus on what happens to the money you've contributed to the LGPS if you leave your LGPS employer. So you might leave to get a new job, you might leave because you're ready to retire, or unfortunately, you might leave because you die. And we're going to cover these three aspects today. So first of all, we're going to talk about what happens if you leave to get a new job. Most people will have many jobs in their working life, and few people will just be in the LGPS from the day they start work to the day they retire. If you get a new job or decide to stop working before it's time to retire, your employer will tell your pension fund that you have left their employment. The main options, if you leave to get a new job, are those on this slide, and I'm going to go into more detail on these as we go through the session. But the basic options are that you can leave your pension within the LGPS until you're ready to take it. You can transfer your pension to another arrangement, maybe to a your new employer's scheme. If you get another LGPS job, you can rejoin the LGPS and combine your LGPS benefits, or under certain circumstances, you can take a refund of your contributions. So let's look at each of these in more detail. The first thing that your pensions team will look at after your employer has told us that you've left is how long you have been in the LGPS for. If you've been a member for more than 2 years, you will get what we call deferred benefits. This means that you can leave your pension in the LGPS. We will look after it, and you can then take it as a pension when you are ready to retire, anytime from age 55 or from 57 after 2028. That age is changing in 2028. If you are a deferred member, your pension benefits keep their value in line with the cost of living for the entire time that we are looking after it. The LGPS currently revalues your pension annually in line with the Consumer Price Index, also known as CPI. If after leaving you join a new pension arrangement, you may also decide to transfer your deferred benefits to that pension scheme. And we will talk about that a little later in the presentation. Okay, so moving on to the box underneath. If you leave the scheme with less than 2 years of membership, your options are slightly different. You get the option to take a refund of your own contributions, which you've paid since being in the scheme, minus a small tax deduction. You don't get a refund of the contributions made by your employer. Or if you've been in the scheme longer than 3 months, you'll also get the option to transfer to another pension arrangement. Again, we will talk about this in more detail later on in the presentation. And finally, if you really don't know what your next move is when you leave your employment, you are allowed to freeze your pension for a short while until you've decided what you would like to do, whether you want to take that refund or whether you want to transfer. You have a defined period of time to make that decision. So as I mentioned before, when you leave the LGPS, most of you will be given the option to transfer your LGPS benefits to a new or a different pension arrangement. So let's say you get a new job and you want to think about transferring your pension to your new employer's pension scheme. Lots of employers offer a defined contribution pension, where your retirement pot is based on the total amount paid in by you and your employer, plus the performance of your investments. You, as the member, take on the investment risk, and the amount that you get back is not guaranteed, although this kind of pension can offer you flexibility for your future. You should do plenty of research and take advice before transferring your pension to a defined contribution arrangement. And I'll explain why later. If you go to work in another public sector role, you may think about transferring to another public sector scheme like teachers, civil service, NHS, police, or several others. Other public sector schemes will offer favourable transfer terms, which make it easy for you to transfer, and these are called club transfers. Not all public sector schemes are exactly the same as the LGPS, but you will find that a club transfer offers preferential transfers and similar, but not always identical, guarantees to the LGPS. Okay, if you go to work at another LGPS employer, you can combine your periods of membership. It's not always in your best interest to do so, so make sure you read the information the fund sends you so you understand your options. You should also note that time limits do apply, and once you've made that decision, it's not reversible. And finally, if you're not moving to a new employer, you can transfer your pension to a personal pension or another arrangement. Transferring to one of these arrangements may mean you lose some of the benefits and guarantees you have under the LGPS. So you should only do this after taking advice. Lots of people might consider transferring simply because they like the idea of having all their pensions in one place. However, this in isolation is not really a valid reason to transfer out of the LGPS. There are risks in transferring your pension, which means you should be giving it some serious thought before signing on that dotted line. One of the great things about the LGPS is that it offers you certain guarantees and is very secure for its members. The value of your LGPS pension is not reliant on movements in the stock market, and there is no investment risk to you as an individual. So if the stock market crashed the day before you retire, it wouldn't affect your LGPS pension in the least. By transferring your pension to another employer's pension, you may be giving up some of these guarantees. And as well as that, you may be giving up some of the death benefits and ill health benefits that are an important part of your pension benefit package. You may also be opening yourself up to scammers. We would always recommend that you take financial advice before transferring your pension out of the LGPS and make sure it is the right thing for you, for your retirement, and for your family should you die or become unable to work. Remember, the LGPS is a secure and guaranteed pension. Transferring is not always going to be in your best interest, and you should do your research, take advice, and transfer only after careful consideration. When you think about transferring out your pension, there is also the risk that you fall into the hands of scammers. Pension scammers are unfortunately still on the increase, and scammers are becoming more and more clever and devious in their methods. They may seem very genuine, produce authentic looking paperwork or websites, and be very charming, knowledgeable, and convincing. Your fund will take steps to try and protect you. We have to in law. But in the end, it will be your decision to transfer or not. So scammers' tactics include things like offering free pension reviews, offering you access to your pension before age 55, which is illegal anyway, so it's an immediate red flag, promoting tax loopholes, promoting loans or upfront cash, and most commonly contacting you out of the blue. Pension cold calling is against the law, and it has been for several years. No company should contact you about your pension unless you've asked them to. Anyone who works for a genuine pension company or your LGPS pension team will fully understand if you don't want to talk on the phone and will contact you another way. So don't be scared to put the phone down on anyone who phones you about your pension. You can check who you're dealing with by looking at the Financial Services Register. Once you've transferred your pension into a scam, it's too late. We can't get it back. We can't help you get it back. And you could end up losing all of your pension savings. So we always recommend you take independent financial advice before transferring out of the LGPS. And in fact, for many transfers, this is compulsory. Okay, I hope I've not scared you too much, but it is an important thing to note. Okay, moving on from transferring your pension out. Of course, lots of people who leave the LGPS are at that point in their career when they are considering retirement. So let's have a look at the main things you need to think about if you are at this stage of your life or your career. So for all types of retirement, you can currently choose to retire any time between age 55 and 75, although this will change to 57 in 2028. You need to have at least 2 years membership in the LGPS to qualify to get a pension. And the exception to this, and you must have left your job. The exception to this being if you reach age 75 as an active member. When you reach 75, your pension is paid straight away, even if you're still in employment. And you must take your whole LGPS pension at the same time. So the three main retirement types which we have on this slide are normal, early retirement, and late retirement. For normal retirement, you'll usually be at state pension age. If you don't know when your state pension age is, there is a link on this slide. You can retire at this age without consent from your employer. For early retirement, this is when you take retirement from age 55 or 57 from 2028. You don't need employer consent for early retirement, but you will have to take a reduction to your benefits for early retirement, for early payment, sorry. And finally, we have late retirement. This is when you retire after your normal pension age or your state pension age. Again, you don't need employer consent to do so. And in fact, you will receive a small increase to your benefits as you are taking them late, which means we'll be paying them for a shorter period. There are some other types of retirement, which I've just popped on this slide. First of all, flexible retirement, which allows active members who are 55 or over to access some or all of their pension benefits while still working, but on a reduced hours or grades basis. Then there's redundancy retirement. If you are aged 55 or over and are made redundant, your full benefits, your pension and any lump sum will be paid to you immediately. And finally, there's ill health retirement, which allows members who are unable to work to get their hands on their pension benefits before their normal pension age. There's more information about all of these on the Types of Retirement talk, which is happening tomorrow at 10 a.m. So if retirement is your thing, can I suggest that you attend that session for more detail and more information? If you are considering any of these three types of retirement, flexible, redundancy or ill health, you should start a conversation with your employer in the first instance. If you call the pension fund, they will refer you back to your employer, because all three of these will need input from them. Okay, moving on from retirement, we're moving on to the third category. We're going to cover what happens if you have LGPS benefits, but you die before you've had the chance to draw your pension. So there are two aspects to this. First of all, dying whilst still in employment and contributing, so as an active member, or dying whilst you're a deferred member, so you've gone to work somewhere else and left your LGPS benefits with us to look after. So if you die either whilst active or whilst deferred, what will happen to your LGPS pension and who will benefit from all that money you've paid in? Firstly, for both active and deferred members, there is a partner's pension, sometimes known as a survivor's pension. This is paid to a spouse, husband or wife, civil partner, or an eligible cohabiting partner for life. The calculation is different depending on whether you're active or deferred at the time of your death. Secondly, there's a children's pension payable. The amount of pension depends on the number of eligible children and if you have a partner. And this is paid to eligible children under the age of 18 or under 23 and in full-time education or vocational training. Again, the calculation is different depending on whether you're active or deferred at the time of your death. And finally, there is a lump sum payable if you die. For deferred members, this is usually a lump sum of 3 times your deferred pension. And for active members, this is usually a lump sum of 3 times your pensionable pay at the time of your death. For both active and deferred, the fund has discretion about payment for the lump sum, but your wish is always considered. You should make sure that you have completed a nomination form and that you keep your details up to date. So moving away from death benefits now, and assuming you manage to stay alive, how will we keep in touch with you once you've left your LGPS employment? So in order for us to stay in touch, it's really important that you tell us when you move house and when you change your email address. And we strongly recommend that if you haven't already, that you register on your fund's online portal. You should also make sure that you've completed that nomination form, which will tell us who you want to receive your lump sum if you die. Assuming you've done all this and we know how to find you, once you've left the LGPS, we will send you an annual statement to tell you how your pension is doing. Depending on which fund you're a member of the 3 on this call, you may also receive regular or occasional newsletters. And of course, you can log on to the portal to see for yourself how your pension is doing. Okay, so this is my final slide. Thank you all very much for coming along. This last slide gives details of the National LGPS Members website, which is full of FAQs, calculators, videos, and loads more, all of it very suitable for pension beginners. And it also gives the contact details of the Clwyd, Oxfordshire and Shropshire pension funds. Thank you for submitting all the questions. The answer to your questions and videos of the presentations will be available on your fund website and video sharing platform next week. And finally, we're just going to answer some poll questions. before we move on to questions. So if you could just have a look at these poll questions again. First of all, if you now had to score your LGPS knowledge, now you've attended the webinar, what score would you give yourself, where 1 is very bad and 5 is very good? And secondly, would you recommend these webinars to your colleagues? Yes, no, or don't know. And thank you very much for those of you who've completed those. Anna, turning to you now, are there any questions in the Q&A that we can pick up now?
Yes, it's a couple. So one asked, Neil's asked, does redundancy include voluntary redundancy? And yes, there's no difference in the LGPS between compulsory or voluntary redundancy. A redundancy retirement is the same. And Devi's asked, what about moving abroad? Another plug for the member portal that your fund gives you. Make sure that you keep your address up to date so we can stay in touch with you, because it's more difficult to keep up with you if you move abroad. So make sure we know where you are, and then your pension usually can be paid even if you're living abroad. And those are the 2 questions that I have in the Q&A now, Becky. So I'll hand back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, and we hope to see you on more sessions later in the week. Thank you. Bye-bye.